hockey.
Well, the other big story, of course, is what's happening in Winnipeg. And when does it happen in Winnipeg? It is not official. There are, obviously, I would say in today's language, it is trending, I'm sure, as the Thrashers could be in Winnipeg. So we have both Darren Dreger and Dave Naylor with us this morning. But, of course, only one of the theme songs is here. So I got to tell you. Sorry, apologies to Dave Naylor, but it looks like Darren Dreger gets the call.
Hey, he knows stuff. We've got the man they call Dreger. Hey, NHL, Darren's real, not a faker. Hey, Darren's tough, not a wuss or a quaker. Hey, he's on now, TSN 1050.
And now we go to Darren Dreger. Dregs, are you there? We'll try it again. Darren, one of them is locked up. Darren Dreger.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. In fact, I had to quickly swap. I apologize if you were searching for me. I got a very important call out of Winnipeg, so I had to take that call, but I'm back now and all is well.
Can you tell us what that call was?
Well, that call was from a primary source who assured me first thing this morning, the same thing that was assured last night, that, all sides continue to work on it, but the deal is not done. He said we're not even dealing in semantics to say that it's close. And in fact, he said, our group was closer to closing on the Phoenix Coyotes a year ago than we are right now to bringing the Atlanta Thrashers into Winnipeg. But, again, to take it a step further, as we reported on TSN last night, is it possible that they get a deal done? Of course it is. Will they get a deal done? Likely. That could happen in the next few days. That could happen at some point next week. But there is no firm deal done at this stage.
We also have Dave Naylor on the line as well. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Mike.
Listening to some of the details that we're talking about now, in terms of hurdles or what has to happen, is there something that is slowing this down, or are we talking about this is the process and the due process it's going to take if indeed Atlanta does go to Winnipeg?
Well, I think that the reporting on this has been consistent all week, that they are in discussions, they're in negotiations. There are several partners in Atlanta Spirit, which is something that, anytime you're doing a deal where you've got multiple signatures on one end of a deal that have to be signed off on, that's always a potential hurdle. And moving a professional sports franchise from one city to another and that kind of transaction, I mean, you're talking about a significant deal, and one that probably didn't get into full motion until we go back a week from Tuesday, once the Phoenix Coyotes matter was settled. But those are all things I think that in the course of they're standard with making any deal of any transaction of this size. As I said, particularly when you have a situation where on one side you have multiple signatures that would have to sign off on the deal.
So we'll go back to Darren Dreger. Dregs, when you take a look at what the response has been in Winnipeg, not surprisingly, people are going to Portage and Maine. They're pulling their pants down. The mullets are running around. They're playing with matches. Anything bad that could happen probably is, and I don't know, maybe in parts of Winnipeg they wouldn't even notice the difference. But let's face it, for the Jets and what it means to that team, a lot sort of is tied into the I guess the emotional value of the name Jets, and we're saying that maybe if it does go there, it's not a guarantee that they get that name.
No, that's accurate. But first of all, people need to realize that the National Hockey League owns the name, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Jets logo and all of that. So it's not quite as easy as moving a team to Winnipeg and saying, well, the Atlanta Thrashers now become the Winnipeg Jets. I'm sure that the National Hockey League would be willing to consider some sort of arrangement, perhaps immediately, perhaps down the road, whereby the old Winnipeg Jets become the new Winnipeg Jets. But, at the moment, it seems a little off-putting to talk about it because there's still so much that needs to get done here. And you know what? We also should consider the remote, and I use that word appropriately here, the remote possibility that someone does surface, that a group does surface in Atlanta to keep this team in Georgia. That possibility, although, again, remote, was thrown at me yesterday morning, and I know that the Atlanta Constitution followed up on that story yesterday as well. So, perhaps this is the sense of urgency that group or another group in and around Atlanta needed. The mere threat that Winnipeg is just days away from closing and relocating this deal perhaps is enough to smoke out whatever interest, legitimate or not, exists in Atlanta.
Mike, I'm sure Darren's getting emails and tweets from people saying, why aren't you guys running with this story? Why aren't you confirming this story? I think it's just to give listeners a little kind of background on how we establish the standard for these types of stories. Going back weeks and months, back when this story was mostly focused on Phoenix, the standard on this story was we would not report deal done until we had it from either the buyer, the seller, or the National Hockey League. And I think at various points in the past few weeks, there have been, tips that a deal was done. Phoenix was going to Winnipeg. There have been tips, along those lines. And in each of those circumstances, the same standard has applied. If the buyer, nor the seller, nor the National Hockey League was confirming those facts, we wouldn't run with the story. And that's the same principle that's being applied in this case right now.
Well, and further to that point, David, guys, I wish that I could divulge the identity of one of my main sources, because if I could, if this person was willing to put his name to record, then, unfortunately for all involved, this story would go away very quickly, at least on the short term.
Say the name.
But what's that?
Say the name.
Yeah, I would love to, trust me, but I can't, and you understand why I can't. But, it's not to say that's not going to happen, and that's why we're it sounds like we're shuffling here a little bit, and I suppose to a degree that we are. But when you're dealing with lives, which is ultimately what we're talking about here in both Atlanta and Winnipeg, and you're playing with the emotions of the hockey fans and all those that are involved in this process, you got to make sure that when you say deal done, that deal is done. And the phone call again that I had 5 minutes ago from a very high-ranking source involved in the process who knows the Thompson people very, very well, says it's just simply not done. It's not done. And so at the moment, today, that's what our focus needs to be on.
So, gentlemen, before I let you go, if we're looking at a timeline, should something significant happen, are we talking hour to hour? Are we talking that through the weekend this thing gets worked on, that there would be some sort of news by a Tuesday, or do we just really not know?
Well, I'll jump in quick, Dave, real quick, only because, again, speaking to the individual I did, they have nothing planned. There's no press conference planned. There is absolutely zero planned for any day, let alone Tuesday. And this individual was going to a family event, which had been planned for quite some time out of the province, and that was going to be his focus for the weekend. My sense, though, in dealing with, again, this individual, is that, yes, it could happen in the next 3 to 5 days. It's close, but not done.
Yeah, I think predicting the timelines on this thing, going right back to March, have been extremely difficult because they change. And, something that looks like it's going to happen soon, then there's another element, there's more discussion. I just think that part of this story has been the most difficult because there are just so many moving parts and dynamics that, trying to nail down a timeline. And that is the question, at this point especially, that everybody wants answered. When? When do we know that they're either coming or they're not coming? And as of yet, we just can't put a date on that.
Well, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Very informative, and for those that need to know, sort of up to date where this stands, I think there's no gray area right now. We understand that there is no agreement, and it may not necessarily be all that close, but we certainly got the details from the right people. We appreciate you, Darren Dreger, and both Dave Naylor, for joining me here this morning.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Once again, that is Darren Dreger and Dave Naylor together.